pod bay doors, please, Hal.
It's chocolate. Oh no, I want one more than ever.
The envelopes are open. Welcome once again. I'm your host, Jerry Dean Roberts of ArmchairCinema.com and also ArmchairOscars.com. And seated across from me is the gold standard and co-host, the critic, dare I say, legend from TalkMovieMe.com, the one and only. You know him, you love him. It's Mr. Doug Keller. How the heck are you today, sir?
I'm surprised by this. I didn't really write anything. I'd like to think.
It always drives me nuts on Oscar shows when they pull out a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Because it's not that.
I
like the ones that just seem to come from, you know, come from the heart. Welcome to our annual Oscar special. This is where we talk about the films nominated for Best Picture. And I'm going to say, of the 2019 selections, I'm not as aggravated as I was last year because there's no Green Book, there's no Bohemian Rhapsody, and I don't have to deal with that. And the ones that I didn't care for are not so detrimental that they look like a sling of mud on a otherwise good film list.
Yeah. There's some that should be there that aren't, but especially in the acting categories.
Yeah. But it is kind of a punch in the nose that Scarlett Johansson is nominated for her first 2 Oscars.
Yeah.
And will lose her first 2
Yeah,
Oscars.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
It is because
she's very good in both.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love her in Jojo Rabbit. Let's just do supporting actress right now. Kathy Bates, really? No Jennifer Lopez?
I didn't see Jewel, so.
No one did. That's how I don't know how it got nominated.
I didn't see Richard Jewell.
Nobody did. She's not nominated for any other award for this performance. Mm-hmm. Except the Oscar.
And this movie isn't nominated for anything
else. It's like, oh, there's a Clint Eastwood movie. We should nominate it for something. Let's just screw the actual Best Supporting Actress out of a nomination and not even have her go up against Laura Dern.
Do you know who really got screwed this year? A24. A24 has 1 nomination, and that's for The Lighthouse for cinematography.
That's Willem Dafoe.
That's their. The what?
Isn't Willem Dafoe up for supporting actor?
No, he's not. A24 has 1 nomination, and that's it. But the funny thing is,
they just didn't run a very good Oscar campaign.
Okay, we're recording this the day after the SAG Awards. This is not going to be a fun year because all four of the acting winners have been telegraphed in advance.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's going to be Joaquin Phoenix, it's going to be Renee Zellweger, it's going to be Laura Dern, and it's going to be Brad Pitt. Laura Dern is the only outlier here because I think that's a category that traditionally loves surprises.
Yes.
I don't know who else. I can't off the top of my head.
Scarlett.
Florence Pugh.
Mm.
That's who I want to be the dark horse in this.
She is so good in Little Women, and
this has been her year.
She's overlooked for her really good performance in Midsommar.
Yeah. Well, this is her year because she had Little Women, she had Midsommar, and then she had that Fighting with My Family, which was not a great movie, but she's very good in it.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I hope. See, that's the thing. I would love Laura Dern to win an Oscar. She deserves an Oscar.
She does.
But
she deserved to be nominated for. She deserved to be nominated for Little Women.
Yeah, that's.
You know
she
who
was
I'm
nominated
surprised
for the wrong movie. Just like
I'm going to go ahead and say this. Do you know who I'm surprised didn't get a nomination? Is Meryl Streep. Not that she's great in Little Women,
but
because
there.
it's Meryl Streep.
Because she's there. Yeah.
I think it's a city ordinance in LA that you have to nominate Meryl
I'm
Streep.
I'm surprised that Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks didn't get nominated because that's more or less obligatory too.
Tom Hanks did get nominated.
He
He's
did for
nominated
supporting?
for Best Supporting Actor for Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
I didn't notice that. I was focused on the fact that there was one non-white person nominated in the acting categories for a
Hmm.
movie that was basically, oh, she stayed in her lane and played a historic black figure. We'll nominate her because she didn't make us uncomfortable the way Jordan Peele did.
Yeah,
And Lupita, we don't want to give another one to Lupita because we already gave her one. And
and we don't want to give too much to Jordan Peele.
right, because why
Did
should
Us get
why
nominated for
should
anything?
nothing?
Nothing. Okay.
Completely shut out.
And you know what else was shut out? And I'm going to gripe about this: The Farewell.
Yeah.
My second favorite film of the year after The Irishman. It is a beautiful film. Is nowhere near these
Right.
awards. And it was all over the Golden Globes.
Hustlers too. I'm very aggravated that Constance Wu and Jennifer Lopez were not nominated.
Yeah.
I'm pretty angry that Hustlers was not nominated for supporting or for
I think they saw Hustlers.
adapted screenplay.
I think they looked at Hustlers and they saw like.
I don't think they watched Hustlers. I think they thought they knew what it was about and didn't
Yeah, I
bother
think they
watch it
thought
and
they knew
didn't
what it
nominate
was.
anybody.
Yeah.
And it's not what you think it is.
It is not what you think it is. A lot of films this year are like that.
Mm-hmm.
Midsummer is not what I thought it was.
No. Jojo
Paras-
Rabbit was
Parasite wasn't what I thought it was.
no. Parasite comes out of left field about
God
two-thirds of the
help
way
me.
through it.
That's about 6 different genres crammed into 2 hours and 12 minutes.
Yeah.
There are some mysteries. There are some real head scratchers.
I'm mad that Knives Out got one nomination.
I'm glad that it got that the nomination that it got was what
Well,
it deserved
it's
the most.
deserving one, but I mean, Ana de Armas,
Mhm.
Daniel Craig, that movie
Ryan
was
Johnson.
directed beautifully. Best Picture. I mean, it's one of the best movies of the year. It's probably in my top 5 of the year. I love it. I just watched it again yesterday.
Well, let's get to the Best Picture nominees because
Yes, let's.
we're going to start with the biggest head scratcher this year. One that I cannot figure out for the life of me. And I saw this movie. I saw this movie last night. It's Ford v Ferrari. What the hell? Can you
saw this a
please
couple of days
explain
ago.
this to me?
Other than the fact that it is very much a traditional Best Picture nominee format,
I don't even see that.
well, when it was nominated, I was perplexed. When I watched it, I'm like, oh, okay, I see why people might have. But when you look at the other nominations, it's like if you build this up from the bottom up, right?
Yeah.
You get sound mixing, sound editing, which is very good. Best
Oh,
Picture.
the technical craft in this movie is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, is Christian Bale's not up for this, is he?
No, it's nominated
acting.
for 4 Oscars.
Yeah. Those
The 2 sound awards, the editing, and this.
Yeah, the 3 that you would expect a car race movie to be nominated for.
Right.
And it's not a bad movie.
No, but I sat
It's
there last night
entertaining.
and I'm watching it. I went to the theater to see this, and I'm watching this last night, and I'm thinking, this is the kind of movie that you would see come out in early April when there's not a lot out. And people go to see it, and it's like, yeah, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that. But you're not really thinking about it when it's over.
No.
This is the best 3-star movie of 2019.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
never been so adequate.
Yeah, exactly. It's very entertaining, but I don't know where this came from, especially that it's in where, Knives Out should be.
Or The Farewell.
The Farewell, or both, or
something.
or I don't even know. Like, I mean, even I know you have problems with it because it's Adam Sandler, but Uncut Gems. Holy
I haven't seen
crap,
it.
that is a.
But I mean,
I get why that's not nominated. That is very much not an Oscar movie,
is
but
it this
he should have been
pattern?
nominated.
Is it this weird pattern that they're on that they have to nominate every few years a movie with Christian Bale?
Maybe.
I mean, it's like, The Big Short, and then Vice, and then what else? Something. It'll come out, and the story in this is interesting.
Yeah.
It's not fascinating, but it's
No.
interesting.
Yeah.
Ford is dying. The Ford industry is sort of mainlining. So this, and by the way, the performance in this that nobody talks about is Jay Barenthal, who I thought was really good, actually good in
He
this.
was as Lee Iacocca.
As a young Lee Iacocca, who
Yeah.
comes up with the idea to save Ford by having it compete with Ferrari, with Enzo Ferrari, in the by building an engine that can
Right.
take his on the road. That's a good story.
Oh yeah, yeah, and Damon and Bale are both very good.
But we got to talk about Bale's accent because it's bigger
actually,
than the movie.
Yeah, and it's the funny thing is it's not really far off from his natural accent.
Right.
But it's far enough away that you can tell that he's putting it on because he's Welsh and he's going for a really hard Cockney.
But it's more like his pissed off Terminator accent. But I was involved. I sat there last night. I watched this, and I was like, "Okay, I'm my feet are in this story. I'm very interested in what's going on."
I enjoyed it, but I will not probably think about it again, and will not clamber to watch it again. I mean,
there is another actor I got to mention. That's Tracy Letts, who plays Henry Ford Jr. And he's just this pissed off executive who is watching his company crash and burn.
Right.
And he's the jerk executive, who will walk in and tell a room full of executives what they're doing wrong and how close they are to the breadline. He's very good here. He's also in Little Women.
Mm-hmm.
He plays the Mr. Dashwood, the guy at the publishing house. He's very good.
Yeah.
But again, it's the best 3-star movie I saw last year.
Yeah.
Why is this nominated for Best Picture?
I don't know. I'll never know. I don't know how it wound up with the votes. I don't know how high up the list, because they always announce them in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
And not in how many votes they got.
Right.
So
I'm sure this was. I have every reason to think this was dragging the bottom.
Oh yeah, but wouldn't it be hilarious if this actually topped the Best Picture nominee votes?
No, I
but
think
it
I
won't
think
win.
This is...
I know it won't win, but
yeah,
I think that would be hilarious if it got more nomination votes than Joker or something.
Yeah,
Best Picture.
This one's dragging it. It's
yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, it is.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm not bad mouthing it, but Best Picture.
There are other films that were better that should have been nominated in this category.
Mm-hmm.
At least 2, if not more.
This needed to be all over the technical awards.
And about half an hour shorter.
God, it's 2.5 hours long. I was going to go to the 10 o'clock show, and then I realized what time I was going to walk out of the theater. I was like, oh, no. I changed my plans.
And it's so much of a lot of the same stuff happening from scene to scene. It's repetitive. I mean, it's well constructed because it's James Mangold. But on the other hand, it's redundant because it's James Mangold. So...
And I got a clue as to the movie that I was about to watch when I saw one of the producers was Michael Mann.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as soon as you see that in the credits, you're like, oh.
Okay, I think I know what I'm in for.
I know where we are now. All right.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next one. Very, very, very briefly, because we just dropped an episode on this one. We're going from the best 3-star movie of the year to the best 4-star movie of the year. That is The
The
Irishman.
Irishman. Oh, I love this movie.
I love this movie so much. It is.
Oh,
I mean, we just did an episode on this, and I'm
2 months
telling you,
old, and we did an episode on it. Yeah,
this is the third time we've talked about it.
It's a hell of a thing. Actually, well, technically it's the fourth because we both talked about it individually on our lists.
Yeah,
For the
technically, yeah.
decade.
But I'll say this again. It took a director of a certain age to direct this material.
Mm-hmm.
A person in their 30s, maybe even in their 40s, could not have directed this.
Not as emotionally connected.
Not as emotionally connected, not with the textures, not with the layers, and especially the pacing.
Mm-hmm. It's a very old man movie.
It is.
But in the best possible way that could be taken.
It's a very 70s movie.
Yeah, it is.
It's a very auteur. And there's a lot of those on this list too.
Mm-hmm.
But and of course I love all the performances. I would like Joe Pesci to win an Oscar.
I want
this.
Joe Pesci to win his second Oscar, or honestly, Pacino.
Yeah, he plays Jimmy Hoffa.
But Robert De Niro cannot possibly win because he wasn't nominated.
Wasn't nominated. I've not figured that one out. Maybe if the movie were made by David O. Russell, they might have nominated him, but
maybe. Well, he managed to walk away from 2 Best Picture nominees, being in 2 Best Picture nominees and not getting a nomination for either one.
Right.
Both of them are the highest nominated movies.
This and Joker.
The only other one that got the same amount as The Irishman is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And Al Pacino was in that. So.
Yeah. But it's a beautifully constructed story about circumstance, about aging, about the adamant of time,
and about the consequences of your actions.
Sins of the father. I was about to say sins of the father, and what are you left with? Mm-hmm. When you live a life of sort of random. When you live a life like this, what do you have if you're lucky enough to survive?
Right.
When you get to the end of the movie is very sad, but it's like nothing I've ever seen before.
Oh yeah, no, it's completely unique. It was funny. Yesterday I was in Barnes & Noble, and I found they had the book out displayed.
Heard You Paint Houses.
But it had the movie cover and the movie title and everything. And I think it was like 300 pages. I'm like, my God, I could finish reading this before the movie was over.
Yeah. Seriously. Because the movie is 3 hours, and it's 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And,
Scorsese's longest film.
Yeah. And maybe one of the longest films to be nominated for Best Picture? I have no idea.
Well, you got this. You got...
War and Peace. Wasn't? No, it wasn't by nominated. Okay.
Lawrence of Arabia, Gone with the Wind.
It was 4 hours long, yeah. Gone with the Wind is just shy of 4 hours.
Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
That's true. But that had the advantage of having 6 endings.
Yeah, well. Godfather Part 2. That's 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was about 9 minutes longer than The Godfather Part 2.
We both declared it the best film of 2019. This is the one we want to win.
And the one that will get completely shafted, and I predict 10 nominations, 0 wins, just like Gangs of New York.
If they're lucky, it might get 1.
I think they're going to get shut out.
Yeah.
For no reason other than, well, I don't know. For reasons that, well, let's give it to these other people that aren't quite as deserving. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I know which one's going to win, and we'll get to that one. But
I know.
Okay, let's move on to.
So I mean, I can't.
Let's move on to I'm going to predict that our next choice is going to be slightly divisive. It's Jojo Rabbit. You want to take this one?
No, how did you feel about it? I love it.
Okay.
I thought it was wonderful.
I am absolutely captivated by the first 10 minutes of this movie. Because it's like something that Wes Anderson might have made.
Yeah.
It's a little. It takes place in the 30s. Is it in the 30s, 40s?
No, it's at the end of World War II.
It's at the end of World War II when
It's like
the
45.
Nazis are recruiting the Hitlerjuden, the Hitler Youth.
Well, this is just like at the tail end. So
Okay.
now they're making them actual soldiers.
Yeah. So you got all these
Training
little
them in
boys
combat.
at what appears to be a summer camp,
Yes.
and they are they. It's this happy-go-lucky summer camp, but they're little Nazis, and the camp is being run by a drunken commandant played by Sam Rockwell. I'm telling you, and the kid who we meet is Jojo Biltzer, whose imaginary friend, who is absolutely a fanboy of De Fuhrer,
Yeah.
and his imaginary friend is De Fuhrer, played
By Taika Waititi.
by Taika Waititi, the director.
The writer-director of the piece. And I think that there is something extremely special about having a half Maori, half Jewish man playing Adolf Hitler in the way that he's playing him.
And he kind of looks a little bit
he's-
like him, too.
He's the imaginary friend of a 10-year-old, so he
Mhm.
only really thinks like a 10-year-old, but how a 10-year-old thinks the Fuhrer thinks.
Mhm.
So it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's some turns. The tone changes, and I think that that's probably where you checked out.
Boy, the tone changes. This movie makes a hard right turn.
Yes.
After that hysterically funny opening, there's a scene where they're walking through the square, this little boy and his mother, played very well by Scarlett Johansson. They're walking through a town square, and there are people hanging from the gallows, and she
Mhm.
says, "What did they do?" And
Yeah,
she
he
says,
says.
"The
He
best."
says, "What did they do?" And she said, "The best that they could," because they
And
were.
my God, the drain is just pulled right out, because this movie, that tone maintains for a good while, and then the movie keeps trying to get back to that comic tone of the opening, and it's a very off balance
Well,
tone shift.
I kind of saw it as um, the beginning is kind of happy and fun because we don't really know what's happening. We're with JoJo. We're in the woods. We're having fun. Do. And the pall that casts, the people dying. I mean, it's. I liked it because it's genuinely how I believe kids had to be in Germany just to not go crazy.
Mhm.
Like, they had to have fun and be upbeat, knowing full well that this is not going to work out for them.
Yeah.
And knowing full well that at any moment they somebody that they know could be hanging in that town square that, and they didn't know why. I love the relationship between JoJo and what's the girl's name?
Well, the story is that he finds a hole in the wall in his house, and he finds out that his mother is hiding a Jewish girl, and his mother is an anti-Nazi.
He doesn't
Yeah.
know it, but his father is fighting with the resistance
Right.
against the Nazis in Italy. He
But
thinks
it's
he's
a-
in the Nazi. He thinks he's in the German army, but he's not.
But for me, it's a little like you have the tone of like Schindler's List,
Uh-huh.
and then you throw it into that Stooges short, I'll Never Heil Again, and you're trying to mix those two, and it just pulls my brain apart, because I'm like, I don't know what speed I'm supposed to be on.
See, I was able to kind of flow with it because there's tragedy and comedy everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I also love Life is Beautiful.
I do too.
Which,
But I think that smoothed it out a little easier. Benini smoothed that out a little easier because
the whole purpose of that was for him to create a game so that his son didn't know what was going on.
right.
Jojo
But Benini
knows what's happening.
But Benini didn't take the comedy up to 11
No.
and then try to drop it down into the reality of the Holocaust. He kept it at a very normal pace. It was a comic pace, but he kept it at a sort of Chaplin-esque pace, and then introduced the horrors so that they two meshed very well. Taika Waititi doesn't do that. He sells us meatballs. He sells us like a movie like Meatballs, and then gives us the Holocaust. That's a very wide gap to get through.
It worked for me.
It didn't work for me.
Okay. What's next?
Well, dear God. Oh boy. I didn't laugh at all in this one. Let me put it this way. Joker is the most miserable movie I will ever love.
Oh,
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
But it is not
It's
at all
terrifying.
a bad movie.
No, no, it's not. So here's where I'm falling down on this. So I am of a dichotomous mindset when it comes to Joker. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I can see down one avenue and appreciate and almost like it is the portrait of society that has gone too far, a man with already mental instabilities continuously
Seriously, chronically dangerous
yes
mental
just
illness.
completely put upon, and everything goes against his favor because he seems to be somebody who could be very, very nice,
Mm-hmm.
but this leads out of the Killing Joke, where Joker's premise is one bad day can
Yeah.
turn you into a lunatic, because that's what happened to him.
Yeah.
In the book, this is a slow burn, but
Oh boy, is it.
he so I see all of that as a beautiful portrait of society destroying someone who was already quite fragile.
Right.
And Phoenix's performance is dazzling.
He's a fuse waiting for a spark.
Right. But down the other road, where I'm kind of walking down the middle of the fork, I'm not quite sure which road to go down, so I'm still going down the middle. Hopefully it doesn't diverge before I get to pick a side, but it's Toxic Masculinity, the movie, otherwise known as a Todd Phillips directed film. There's so much. I can't say that I like or love it. There is so much unpleasantness. I appreciate it. I know what they were trying to do, and I think in a lot of ways they were successful.
Now, when you say unpleasant, you're not talking about individual scenes. You are talking about
The entire
wall to wall.
The entire film is unpleasant. But I've watched unpleasant movies before
Yeah.
that I have adored.
We both have.
Yeah, Raging Bull is
Most Scorsese movies.
yeah, most. And you're never. What I like about it is you're never asked to identify or sympathize with
No.
Arthur.
But you do anyway. A little bit. You do anyway a little bit because you do a little bit anyway because
to a point, yeah, but
I see this movie in two ways. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no,
but
go ahead.
I see this movie in two ways. One, as a comic book movie. An experiment in taking this character and applying him to the real, actual terra firma, the real world. How would a character like this be in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, the Joker was always one of those villains that I was scared of because A, clown, B, um, because without the makeup, he's possible.
Yeah.
He's a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
So
Randomness,
all
that
of,
scary
the
random
the
combination of
chaos
violence.
And Joaquin Phoenix said just last night when he was accepting the SAG award for Best Actor for this, he said that he was standing on the shoulders of his favorite actor, Heath Ledger, which really did lay the groundwork for him. Because, yes, Jared Leto played a crazy Joker, but not Heath Ledger, burn it all down because I like fire kind of a Joker.
Jared Leto was playing a guy, to me, playing a guy who was a thug who was modeling his behavior after Joker.
Right.
He was not playing Joker.
He was one of the Batman Beyond Joker gangs.
Right.
Yeah. But this, I don't know if I can support or justify Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Actor. I expected it to be nominated for Best Actor, and that's about it.
My two sides of this. One, I saw it as a comic book movie, equating how this would be in the real world. The other side of this is it's an extreme examination of a mental illness that is unchecked by a society that refuses to deal with it on an individual basis.
Right.
This man needs to be in an institution, needs to be medicated, and needs to be under severe treatment. Now, this is 1981.
Right.
So all of that probably wasn't available.
No.
Today, it would be treated with much more, I won't say loving care, but much more of the focus it would need.
Because he did have state assistance, he would have been diagnosed and treated.
Right.
All of this, of course, set to the backdrop. They transplanted the garbage strike of New York,
right,
to Gotham City.
Right.
And
which is a real thing, kids.
Yes, it was, and it was bad. Glad I wasn't alive for that.
Yeah.
Wasn't that in the mid-70s?
Yeah. This movie is very Reagan era.
It's very, yes. It's Thomas Wayne is very Reagan era.
Yeah.
In this.
I would say that you almost probably don't even need Thomas Wayne in this movie.
I don't think you do. But so I like that it's attempting to, in a way, kind of be a populist. You know, like Down with the Rich, Kill the Rich, and all of that, and portraying the rich guy who's usually portrayed as a saint, as a total jerk.
The 1% of 1%.
Oh yeah. I like that they did that for him. I kind of like that Bruce was there. Knowing that this is not intended to be the definitive origin story of the Joker. This is an origin story of a guy who became a Joker in whatever reality this is, which obviously we know he will be the birth of Batman.
I really think Todd Phillips has a good film here. He has a challenging film here. Because except for the inclusion of Bruce Wayne and Thomas Wayne, He's not interested in making you like this movie, clearly.
No.
He's not interested in currying your favor.
Hmm.
He's not interested in selling this to fanboys.
Right.
He's interested in selling the story that he wrote.
Right.
But he does so individually and with such an eye on this particular character and what he's going through and the way in which society just dumps all over him,
Hmm.
the cold reality. I think the failing of the movie is that he does not know how to end it.
He doesn't. He does not know how to
The
end
third
it.
act
It's a
does not
mess.
work for
It's a
me.
mess. It's a total mess because it's when he finally descends into the homicidal rage
Yeah, and he
that
goes on the
Joker is
talk show
known
and all
for.
of that.
And
I kept thinking of King of
so,
Comedy, and I shouldn't have been thinking about that while I was
well,
watching
see,
this
no,
movie.
but the problem is all I could think about was that uh, this is the King of Comedy. Only instead of Rupert Pupkin, we get Travis Bickle.
Right.
Because this is a hybrid between Taxi Driver and King of Comedy.
Mm.
A lot of people aren't seeing that because a vast amount of people have not seen King of Comedy.
Yeah.
But that's what it was to me, and like it felt like Todd Phillips was retreading stuff that we've already seen as an homage, but it's not. It wasn't an original structure. It wasn't an original concept or thought. And if you look at what he said later,
Mm.
how he made a movie like this that is just unpleasant and graphically violent and horrifying.
Which I'm okay with that
I don't
because
mind
I
that,
like a challenging
but
movie.
the reason he said he made it was because the comedies he used to make are finally being recognized for the sexist dude bro toxic masculinity bullshit messes that they are.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, people don't like those kind of comedies anymore, so you made me make this kind of movie. It's like, you know what, man? Shut
I
up.
would prefer it if he
Shut
had
up.
simply said, I made the movie I wanted to make.
Right, because I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time. It's been a big ambition, and I have the clout now that I could make something like this. Fine, do say that. Say you were making those schlock movies because they were a job and you got money for them.
But
That's
this is
fine.
this is a real, um, it's dumping the ice bucket on your head
Yeah.
to people who complain and gripe about comic book movies
Mm-hmm.
and all of this all being the same. And I'm thinking, and then DC wanting to be the more adult
Yeah.
oriented
Yeah.
entity. This is it.
Yeah.
This
This
is
is
the
it.
direction you need to go.
Right.
But I'm thinking to myself now here's where I had egg on my face. I wrote my review when I saw this movie, and I said I have every reason to think that when this opening weekend is over, 90% of the people who see this movie are going to hate it. Boy, the egg on my face was the box office
Yeah. Yeah.
because
It
this
did.
just knocked it out of the park.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This did very well.
And I don't really understand because if I know and I don't really follow public taste because I'm thinking most people are going to hate this, and then the box office just proved me completely wrong. What was it that kept people going back to this?
Toxic Masculinity, the movie, and an outlet for uh, toxically masculine men to go see. Finally, we have representation again that we didn't have for maybe a year, and
I
now
think
we
it
see
might have also
ourselves.
I think it might have also been the fact that this was as un-MCU as you could get.
Oh yeah, this
Disney wouldn't go anywhere near material like
no,
this.
and I this is not. My son was saying, "Oh, I'd love to see Joker," and I said,
No.
he's 15, and you know he's seen the John Wick movies and it's Shining and Alien and all that, and I'm like, it's not what you think it is.
No, it's not.
It's not. it's not the origin story of the laughy clown Joker.
It's not
It's
Mark Hamill.
no. And although, Mark Hamill in The Killing Joke,
Yeah, I actually like that movie.
so did I. Uh,
I was kind of alone in liking that one.
oh
But
no, I loved it,
oh
and
yeah, we were kind of alone in
yeah,
liking it.
yeah. The whole man, the way that he did Joker for that was very different from the way that he's done Joker previously.
Yeah,
And
that
I'm
is
like this.
almost the template, the preamble for this.
Yeah,
Because, and I'm detecting that I like this movie a lot more than you did. The only problem that I generally have with this movie is the third act.
see, I struggle with it on.
And you are life Batman death. I mean,
Well,
you're the guy. You love
yeah,
Batman
yes, and that's why
tremendously.
I when it was first announced, I'm like, oh, that's gonna be awesome. And then as I'm sitting there watching it, and after the first time I watched it, I was very against it after the first time I saw it.
Mhm.
I appreciate it more after having seen it a second time.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I should have been all about it, and I just, I mean, I think 2019 was the year of kind of disappointments for me because I was like, oh, Joker's gonna be cool, and we'll get to see this, and then I see
And
that, and I'm
Star
like,
Wars is gonna be
and
great.
Star Wars is gonna be great, and I was really anyway.
Indifferent.
Uh, yeah, it ended up being, I'll watch Rise of Skywalker when I'm watching the whole saga,
Mhm.
but I probably will not rewatch it on its own very many
Despite
times.
the fact that you've seen it in the theater 4 times.
Yes.
Rest assured, I will be announcing my disappointment throughout the world after I see it 5 more times.
Yes. Exactly.
But it
But
is
Joker's
honestly,
hard.
I love a challenge.
Yeah, it is.
I love it when a Hollywood production can just break through all of this. No, 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 and just make a movie like this.
Yeah, like I admire the gusto that they applied to
Hmm.
this. That this was an all or nothing. We're doing this.
Hmm.
Uh, Suck on it world.
Yeah.
Kind of a, and we're going to show you who the real Joker is, and that is how he is in the books
Hmm.
later on
Yeah.
in the books. He
Post
is,
Frank Miller.
yeah, he is an insane homicidal maniac, mass murderer, domestic terrorist. That's who
I'm
he
gonna go.
is.
I'm gonna. By the way, and I got to mention this. I got to get this in here before we move on. Robert De Niro plays a talk show host who, I'm sorry, he looks like if the mob took over the Tonight Show.
Well, here's why I found him being a talk show host
Improbable.
and ironically hilarious
Yeah.
because I think he's been on 3 talk shows
Hmm.
ever, and I think he's only spoken on one of them. It's
Right.
like- because he does not do them. So him being the host was hilarious to me,
Hmm.
and the fact that I really wish. In part of me wishes that they could have named him something close to Rupert Pupkin,
Yeah.
like that. This is now later on. Rupert Pupkin got his dream,
Yeah.
even though this is set 2 years before King of Comedy came out.
Or Arthur Fleck is obsessed with the King of Comedy.
Right. But it's because it hasn't
Well,
it hasn't been released yet in this
now the box office has inspired them. I keep hearing rumors of a second one.
uh,
I would say this. I would go this route.
make
If
it
you're going to
cinema.
do this, pick another villain from the Rogues Gallery
Mhm.
and do something like this if you're going to go this route.
Right, because
Pick
there are...
Penguin, pick Scarecrow, pick, you know.
You could do... Well, Scarecrow would be...
Freeze you could do, obviously.
Freeze you could do. Scarecrow would be a terrifying one. And you could make Penguin into a non-ridiculous character.
Yeah.
By doing this. Or even... God, there's so many.
I mean, you could do Penguin as a socialite who is revealed to have a deformity, and he is cast out of society and goes on this murderous...
Something like that.
Yeah.
Or, there's ways to do it that doesn't involve a sequel, because this whole thing...
I don't need a sequel.
The whole thing about this is that it is the decline of this man's life.
Yeah.
Because...
Mixed with the decline of society.
So, the reason that this works and the reason that I'm kind of on board with it, with what it's trying to do, is that if you remove the makeup and remove and change the title and don't have it be about the Joker,
nobody would go and see this.
It's still a really good examination of a man falling apart.
Right.
But it's, it's very much like Falling Down, the Michael Douglas terrible Joel Schumacher
Thank
movie.
you. I'm so glad you said that. Because I hate that movie.
It's awful. Bernie Getz kind of, style of... This resolves itself. Yes, he goes to prison. Yes, he's revered in prison.
He gets out of prison. He breaks out of prison.
Yeah, but I don't need to see him in the full-on crazy for a whole movie.
Yeah.
The point of the movie was the decline. And that a gentleman can be broken and become a monster just because his mother tried to give him self-esteem and the world did everything to take it away from him.
Right.
So a sequel, I think, would undermine this movie.
Yeah. It would absolutely kill it.
If this ends up winning, which it probably won't, but it has
He will win.
He will win. But if this ended up winning Best Picture, I would be more supportive of it winning the statue than last year's winner. 1,000-fold.
I would be more supportive.
I want Ford v Ferrari to win instead of Green Book.
I was just about to say that.
Anything is going to be better than what they did to us last year.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Well, let's move on. I think we've kind of exhausted that one. Now we don't have to do an episode on it.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on to absolutely the biggest surprise of these nominees, because I am in love with Greta Gerwig's Little Women.
Oh, Little Women was so good.
I never thought I would say that, because I so loved Gillian Armstrong's movie, and I thought she had written the last word on this story.
Yeah.
And I went to see this past Saturday. And usually these literary adaptations, I'm not on board. I'm just kind of there, and I'm like, okay, well, it's very good, and I enjoy it. No, I'm in this.
It's full of life. It's full of what I genuinely adored of this, aside from everything, was I loved how Gerwig used the characters from a book from the 19th century,
1869,
but still was able to pull in rhetoric and thoughts and feelings about things today.
The plight of women, because this is a story about women. It's not a story told from a male perspective.
Not anywhere even almost. Yeah.
The men in this are kind of terrible.
Yeah.
And the strange thing is, and I think people who see this movie will miss this, what Gerwig does is she moves back and forth in time
Yeah. Yeah, she does.
in a way that tells you the story to build up to things that you've only gotten portions of, so that later on, when you're back when they
Mm-hmm.
were in their early 20s, you're picking this up and you're thinking, okay, this is going to lead to what we saw before.
Right. And I love
Her storytelling is so complex.
it is, and so there was there were a few criticisms of this that I saw that
Oh, they can bite me.
were so sexist because there were people complaining about the non-congruent time,
Mhm.
you know, the jumping around in time, saying, you know, that it was confusing, they couldn't follow the story. I'm like, these are the same people who extol the virtues of Pulp Fiction or,
Yeah.
you know, anything that, you know, Tarantino did out of sequence
Or Inception.
Inception or, uh, uh, well, also the people that would rally to The Usual Suspects, even though that is not us. Um,
That should have been my overrated pick.
oof, I hate that movie. Anyway, um, but she does kind of elegantly things that I mean, look at The Irishman. That jumps around without telling you,
Yeah.
and nobody complained about that. Why would they
No.
complain about it from this? Because a woman wrote and directed
And
it.
because this movie, it's about, it connects the plight of women
Hmm.
in the 19th century, which Emma Watson says, if I get married, everything I own is his.
Hmm.
Every dollar I own is his.
Hmm.
When we have children, they're his.
They're his property. They're not. I'm just kind of there.
And I was very
Yeah.
impressed that Greta Gerwig would allow that in the dialogue,
Yeah.
not in the subtext.
Right. She puts it straight out there, and there's a few.
It's out front.
Yeah. There's a few times that how do you say her name? Sarah Ronan.
Cersei Ronan.
Cersei Ronan has like a big speech
Hmm.
about the importance of uh, gender equality,
Right.
and it's all this. It's just kind of perfect.
Yeah.
And I am
We're
angry,
eventually going to do an episode about this movie
probably.
because
I am
it's
so angry that they overlooked her.
well, I am glad that that she at least got nominated for her screenplay,
Right.
because this screenplay, I wish they'd have nominated her for her filmmaking.
Yes, because her
But
filmmaking is dazzling.
I'm sitting there and I know these girls.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the 45 minutes, I know these girls individually,
Mm-hmm.
not as these are the characters that were in the story. No, I know their personalities.
Right, and it's this version of it. Now, I love the Katharine Hepburn
I do
version,
too.
but
I do too. It's very straightforward.
it's you know, we're gonna do down the line plot.
Yeah.
We know that you like the story, so we're gonna give you the story, and that's gonna be all.
We're going to give you the highlights of the
Right,
story.
right. Here's the Cliff's Notes. But the one from '94 with Winona Ryder,
Mhm.
Gillian Armstrong one, does go into more character.
Yeah.
But not like this.
This is like sitting down with a great book that opens itself up
Yeah.
as you're going through the
Yeah.
chapters.
Yeah.
There are so many layers. Now, this is a 2.5 hour movie.
But you don't
You don't feel that 2.5 hours.
Mm-mm.
This could have been 3.5 hours, and I would have been okay with that.
This could have been, you know, this is one of those like blue is the warmest color. You walk in and you go, why is this going to be so long? And then at the end of it, you're like, why isn't this longer?
Or it's like what was the Mr. Rogers documentary? I'm like, why is this only 90 minutes? And then I watch the movie and I'm going, okay, now I know why it's only 90 minutes.
Yeah, no, because
When you spend 90 minutes with the most perfect person in the world, after a while, you're like, okay,
Yeah,
I get it.
and just the human body can only cry so much before
Oh,
it's.
I was jerked back and forth in this movie
Mhm.
because I'm gonna admit I got a little choked up.
It got
And
very dusty in the room when I was watching it.
spoiler alert, I got a little tear when the father came home.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Bob.
but I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, it's Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
What is
As
this?
soon as he showed up, I'm like,
But
it's
I'm
like I
also
know he does
thinking
serious parts, and but
he's a comedian. He
yeah.
doesn't. But I'm sitting there and I'm on him, and I guess I have trust issues because I'm sitting there going, okay, now it's gonna be his story, and it wasn't.
No,
It wasn't
no.
because he comes home. They keep getting letters, because
Yeah.
he's away fighting with the Union Army,
Hmm.
and then it's Christmas Day, and all of a sudden he walks in the door, and it's just this joyous reunion,
Yeah.
and it's
But
kind of beautiful. And he's hugging, and Laura Dern is beautiful. She
uh,
plays the
the
mother,
mother. Oh.
and she's hugging him, and I'm thinking to myself, brace yourself, honey. He's been away a long time.
You're not in the army anymore. You don't have to stand at attention. Oh.
Yes. I'm not. Oh. But honestly,
Is that a gun in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
but isn't it interesting that all of these girls have a passion, an individual passion
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't involve a man, doesn't
At all.
involve marriage,
Yeah.
but the social structure is pushing them
Mm-hmm.
in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Joe wants to be a writer. Amy wants to be a painter,
Mm-hmm.
and Beth wants to be a musician,
Mm-hmm.
and Meg wants to be an actress.
Right.
And these are occupations that do not involve men.
No, not even remotely. And I think there was a kind of a wonderful little push um, back at the end of the Victorian era and at the beginning of the 20th century.
Mhm.
People like Louisa May Alcott and Edith Wharton, well, all of the Whartons, and all of them making very progressively minded films about women.
Right.
Or not films, writing books. Pride and Prejudice.
Mhm.
Um, uh, 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 what's the one?
Age of Innocence.
Age of Innocence and the.
Persuasion.
Mm-hmm. There's that. Hang on. I've got a.
And in its own way, Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, I guess in a way, I suppose. Uh,
Because that's a movie about people who are looking forward to the future
yes,
in a society that is rooted in the past.
right, right. And Emma.
Emma, yes,
Emma's
definitely.
the one that I was trying to think of, and
The 19th century Clueless.
yes, I'd rather watch Emma.
I love Clueless. But
I'm,
it's
but yeah, this is just a sublime, wonderful, just leave the theater smiling kind of a movie.
and it didn't it make you thank your lucky stars that you live in the era of Microsoft Word? Because at the end of the movie, when she's writing her book
Oh God.
and she has to lay out every single freaking page on the
Mm-hmm.
floor, and I'm
to,
like,
to edit and orient it and move things around. Oh,
I'm so happy for Microsoft Word. I'm sitting there. I've got it. I've got my book on my jump drive.
yeah, yeah. So if I printed it out and it got burned, it wasn't the only copy.
Oh God, that scene where she burned that book, I was sitting there thinking, "You're not coming back from this.
Uh-uh.
this relationship is damaged. It is done.
But they do.
But they do, because that's what family does.
Yeah.
That's what family does.
Yeah.
And I want to mention, I got to single out Florence Pugh.
Oh, she was so good in this.
And she's nominated for this.
Mm-hmm.
26 years old.
And Laura Dern should have been nominated for this instead of Marriage Story, even though she was good in Marriage Story. She's much better here.
Well, the Marriage Story is a bigger part.
Yeah, it's a flashier part, and that's why she's getting more attention for it. But I think she was much more nuanced in this.
But Florence Pugh is this young woman who, in the textures and the layers of this performance, are so amazing, because as the movie moves back and forth in time, you can see the younger Amy, the younger, more immature Amy, with an older Amy who has experienced the disillusions and disappointments of the world a little bit more. And it's such a complete, complex performance, because hers is the personality that's more out front.
Right.
You can feel the passions and also the anger and the immaturity that she has.
Yeah.
This is my choice for the Best Supporting Actress. Of the year.
Yeah.
Florence Pugh.
I would back that up. Yeah.
She's had a good year. She was also in Midsommar, she was also very good in that.
She's very good in Midsommar.
And the movie you didn't see, which was Fighting with My Family, which was also very good. I forgot she was in that. But I can't say enough about it. It's a beautiful film.
It's such a just an involving emotion. It's just a good time, and it's so well put together.
I was entertained by this.
Right, and it was also just an impressive, well done film. So it has a lot going for it, and I am very sad that it will be ignored and forgotten.
Well, speaking of sad, let's move on to a movie that has about as many laughs as Joker. Because our next film is Marriage Story. Oh my God!
Wow!
This was, oh my God! I sat there and I was.
This is intense.
Okay, here's a plot for a movie. Here's a pitch for a movie. We got Kylo Ren, and he marries Black Widow, and they're not getting along so well.
Go figure.
And they have a son, and he wants to stay on Coruscant, and she wants to stay on Jakku. Why anybody would want to stay on Jakku, I don't know, but she wants to stay on Jakku. And their relationship is strained, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, I love that. So this was written and directed by Noah Baumbach, who
does not write happy stories.
No, but he based this on his own experience.
Yeah,
and
you can tell.
Yeah, what I love about it is that he easily could have made a film making himself the proxy for the good guy and blaming everything on
making her a hateful monster.
Yeah, but in the end, you support both of them.
Right.
Throughout it, you just want him to go away. He is awful because he's got a girlfriend, and he does not take his wife seriously, even though he claims that she's his favorite actress.
Yeah.
And maybe she is. Maybe he has more of a professional love for her than a. He's very domineering.
Well, Adam Driver is proving to be one of the best actors we have right now. He's a promise of
win an Oscar or 7. Yeah. He's good.
And I have underestimated until now Scarlett Johansson. Between this and Jojo Rabbit, she's really proving to be, because she's not the most expressive actress.
Wasn't she nominated for Girl with the Pearl Earring back in 2003?
No, she's never been nominated.
She wasn't?
No, she was not nominated for that. These are her first two nominations. But the thing is about this movie, she is the practicality. She's the practical side of the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
He's more the passionate side of the marriage.
Right.
And they're just not suited for one another
Right.
in terms of their professional careers, because she has a career in LA and his career is in New York.
Yeah.
And the tension point is their son.
Right.
Which I want to say, I'm very glad that there wasn't a temptation to drag the son into this.
Yes.
And he kept it at a level of mommy and daddy keep their problems over here,
Mm-hmm.
and the well-being of their son is that they do that.
Right. And
the well-being of their son comes first.
right. There, and eventually he starts to realize he's finally told to his face that he is not treating the marriage as a partnership.
Yeah.
Because when they say, "Oh, we talked about splitting our time between L.A. and New York," and he goes, "Well, it was brought up, and then they bring up, but you moved to wherever, Denmark, for 6 months to direct a play there, and was that agreed upon?" It's like, well, we had a discussion about it, and we decided that it was best. So when it's to your benefit, it's a discussion. When it's to her benefit, it was just brought up.
Yeah.
And that's the moment for me that I'm like, yeah, I've lost now all of my sympathy for him.
Yeah.
And then it's revealed that he had a girlfriend. It's like, like,
yeah.
How much lower can this guy go? I mean,
they don't throw that at you in the beginning, because it would have been. There's nothing exploitive about this story.
No. This is like an even-keeled Kramer versus Kramer.
Yeah, that movie was so one-sided because it kind of made her into a selfish jerk.
Kind of? It absolutely and completely made her into a
Well, I
selfish
say
jerk.
kind of because at the end she gets what she wants.
Which is not, it's still not a positive thing.
But it's not. I mean, she gets what she wants, and it's like, no, you shouldn't get what you want.
No,
you walked out.
You abandoned them.
But
yeah,
this story,
but this is not that.
This story could only be made by somebody who went through this.
Yeah.
And of course, I've never been divorced, but I've been married for 13 years. We've been together for 17. And I see the strains. I see, because every marriage has strains. Yeah. And I see the complications in the personalities.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting portrait of how unnatural marriage is. Because, and I say that, and I don't say that to be negative, but unnatural in the sense of you're putting two people in the same space for their entire lives.
Yeah. Well, also remember, this is what I always think of when people, you stay married for life. When marriage was invented, life was a lot shorter.
Yeah.
There was no, staying married to the same person for 50, 60 years. That they didn't even know that 50 or 60 was a possibility for an age.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're born, you die at 21, you're married at 13,
and she'll die
15,
she'll die in childbirth
she'll
at
die
the
in
age
childbirth,
of 29.
Or if she makes it to 29.
Yeah.
Going back real far, she'd die in childbirth because she's 15 and having a baby, and then he'll die at 21 and the baby will.
And the only thing you had of a doctor was a guy with a stick and a bucket of mud.
If you were lucky.
If you were lucky. If you were wealthy.
Mm.
But this is interesting because you can tell, and I've always equated. It's like people say, "How do you stay married?" And I say, "Well, you have to make each other laugh."
Yes.
And they have long since stopped making each other laugh.
Right. And I like that they do give you glimpses of how they were
Yeah.
in the beginning and where he gradually asserted his dominant personality and kind
Hmm.
of took over the whole thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, let's see, I've been together with my wife for 18 years and we've been
Mhm.
married for 15 and a half.
And I'm
So,
sure there are times when you two just,
oh, there were
yeah,
some years. There were some
yeah,
that were, to say, bumpy.
yeah.
You know, it's
Same here.
yeah, it's
And like I said,
I
it's a
I
very
there were
unnatural
there were
state.
there were fewer
It's
there are fewer jumps and jolts in a BMX race
yeah,
than there.
but it's an unnatural state because it's a man-made institution,
Hmm.
and um, it's a state that I'm sure nature never really intended.
There are because there are only what 5 or 6 animals in the entire animal kingdom that mate for life,
Hmm.
and 3 of them are birds.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
there, there might be one mammalian
hmm,
species that naturally just pairs off for life,
hmm,
but it's there's a reason it's uncommon.
yeah. Well, and it's also your union depends on the two of you, who you are, what you want, what your goals are, and how willing you are to, um, how much you are willing to give. And people say, well, marriage is 50-50. No, marriage is not 50-50. It's 100% all the way around.
Yes.
You have to give of yourself more than you give to anyone else on the planet, even yourself.
Yeah.
And I love being married. I do.
Yeah, me too.
I love and adore my wife, and I love being married to her. But I'm looking at these two people and I'm thinking, you guys are on two different planets.
Yeah.
He's She's the type that she knows exactly what she wants. He has a vague idea of what he wants.
He has he wants to be known as the great Broadway director.
Yeah.
She wants to make a living doing what she loves, which is acting,
Yeah.
wherever that may be. On the
And she has
stage,
sacrificed a lot of her career for him.
yes, to stay a New York based theater actress
Yeah.
who could easily have been in movies, television, making a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
And she's not even there for the money. She's like, I just want to be out where I can see my family and pick up a job every now and then when I
Hmm.
want to. And he's like, well, yeah, but no, there's no theater out in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
No good, legitimate theater out there. Okay, so
It's all about the movies,
do something
movies and
else.
television.
Do something else. Like, you can tell your stories, but adapt to make your
Isn't
life.
there a movie community in
Yeah,
New York?
yeah, oh yeah, there's huge, but the it's this is the very stuck up. There's only theater in New York,
Yeah.
and the only real theater is off Broadway, where
Kansas
only
City.
six people walk into the theater, usually because it's cold and they didn't realize there was gonna be a play,
Hmm.
and they walk in and they're like, oh well, we'll stay here for a little bit.
And they walk in because it's warm, you've got coffee, and you got Wi-Fi.
Exactly. That's you know that's real theater to people like the driver character. But it's a very antiquated
Mm.
mindset
Yeah.
that is regrettably very prevalent
Mm.
in the theater community. I love the theater. I love the theater community. I think that there are just some people who are too fervent about it.
Well, I want to say this, and this is where that's really where this story comes in because they have different goals.
Hmm.
They're different people.
Very.
They're just different. I mean, he lays it out. He's not apologetic. He lays it out when they're in that therapy session at the very beginning, and they're reading what they like about each other.
Oh, I
Um,
love that eventually, like, they don't read them until, and the son finds his about her.
which I thought was a little on the nose.
It was on the nose, but it was also kind of sweet.
It was kind of sweet, but
You know, it was nice. It was as nice for her to hear as it was for him to hear, because he wasn't saying it. His child was saying it. His words about his soon-to-be ex-wife, and he's like, "Oh yeah,
yeah. And I love that the movie doesn't end. The movie has an extremely life goes on ending.
mm-hmm.
I want to say this though: the movie does stumble for me at one crucial point, and that's the scene that everybody likes to show. There is a scene toward the end of this movie where they meet in his new apartment,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
that big fight, that explosive."
they have an explosive
Yeah,
argument,
yeah,
which every couple does.
yeah.
Every couple has this argument if they're together for a long time. But it falls down on its face in the scene that the advertisers love to show when he says, "I wish you were dead." It's a clang. It falls on its face. It comes out of nowhere. The movie doesn't earn that because she is not developed as such a monster that that's the point that he would arrive at.
But I will say this in favor of it. Why he says that is because what he says it because of a lot of reasons. He has been bottling up a lot of animosity.
Mm-hmm.
He has been um, under all of this stress, as has she. They
Mm-hmm.
both have been. And it felt to me like one of those things where you are in the heat of the moment
Mm-hmm.
and you say the first thing that pops into your head that you know will hurt them the most.
Right.
And how damaging would it be if the person you've spent years with, loving and being together, struggling through hard times and money and all that kind of stuff, to be told that they wished you were dead?
I think I could have dealt with it a little better if it had been something. I wish I'd never met you.
Well, I think
Because to me, for my personal, that hits harder
mm,
because what that says is I question every minute that I had with you.
yeah. I think here when he says that though, that's when he breaks down, right?
Yeah.
I think he realizes, and this is why I support this being there. He realizes that he had no business saying that.
Right.
He realizes she's not the bad guy here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment that he realizes that he is being completely unreasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And it took him pushing the most extreme reaction he could have and saying it out loud to her. I think he needed that burst of ugly
Oh, I support
to
that.
bring
It's just what
him.
he says that I thought.
I think it works.
I just didn't think it rose to that. I thought it rose to, I wish I'd never met you or something. I don't, dead just seems a little,
Well, see, I actually think that saying you wish somebody was dead means that you wish you still had all the time with them, but now you don't have to worry about them anymore.
yeah.
Whereas saying I wish I'd never met you is really, like you said, a questioning of every single decision that led to them being together and what happened with that. I
Which is why I think that would hit a little harder.
I think that that would be more damaging, but it would also it might not be where he is right then because
Mm.
he might think, the I wish you were dead is kind of like I'm glad we were together enough to get for me to have my son and
Hmm.
I wouldn't trade that.
Yeah.
So instead of saying I wish I'd never met you, I wish you were gone now.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that's a more reasonable position because he does love his son.
Hmm.
So
I see that. I see
he's
that.
not
I
he's
just,
not bemoaning the fact that they were together. He's just saying for him it would be easier if she were just gone and he could just raise his kid in New York and not have all this trouble.
I see that. It's just when I was watching it, that just seemed, it just seemed to
I get it.
slide into a place I wasn't.
Yeah, I followed the whole tenor of that argument, and I'm I understand where he was with it.
Well, I'm gonna say this. It's not a movie I want to watch again.
No,
It's a very sad movie. It's a very 70s movie.
again,
It's a
it's a very 70s.
very 70s style of movie that if you're dealing with a studio executive, no, let's make this not quite so. This is a little too depressing for.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not. This is a movie made for Netflix. I mean, this is definitely a movie made. You couldn't put this in the theater.
They did.
But I mean, they did. But I mean, this is not a movie that you could do a major release for.
It would be
Um,
hard to get people. It would be hard to get a box office
right.
success out of this. Uh, but it is incredibly well written, well
Very well.
acted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I maybe question his nomination for director. I like Noah Baumbach.
Is he nominated for Best Director?
Yeah,
Okay.
and his girlfriend isn't.
Yeah.
Gerwig.
Yeah.
So the fact that he is nominated for a very I didn't feel a lot of I didn't feel him there
Hmm.
outside
I
of
feel
the
him in his other
script.
films.
Yes, I do too. He has a directorial presence in
Hmm.
things such as what he did Mistress America, didn't he? Greenberg, Squid and the Whale.
Uh,
He,
I'm actually kind of alone in loving Greenberg.
I haven't seen
I like a movie about a complete jackass
it.
that keeps him a complete
Yeah.
jackass.
Um, like I like Noah Baumbach. He is more visually dynamic in other things,
Hmm.
and this does not call for visual dynamism.
Yeah.
But there are there were ways that he could have made this visually exciting in ways that he didn't,
Yeah.
but in ways that Gerwig did in Little
Yeah.
Women. She did not direct that as a flat style literary adaptation.
Yeah.
It's vibrant and alive, and this was a lot of handheld camera, swing it around,
Yeah.
husbands and wives style.
I sensed him and the actors.
Yeah,
I didn't sense him and the studio notes,
right.
which I get a lot of times.
Yeah.
I sensed I've got a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Very much with Little Women. I have a passion for the story I want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
I can even say that about Todd Field. It's like I
Mm-hmm.
want to tell this story.
Yeah.
And I've got something I want to say. And that's very much it's very much the texture of a lot of these films this
Yeah,
year.
yeah. I
In
just
Marriage Story, it's not a pleasant movie.
no.
It's an important movie.
I feel like this is the one that I kind of think should have been kind of best actor, actress, supporting
Mhm.
actress, screenplay, and go home.
Yeah,
Like
let me tell you something.
it shouldn't be up for director. It doesn't need to be up for picture.
The portrait of lawyers in this
Oh,
is where I think the movie really goes over the top for
very
me,
much so.
because I'm sitting there thinking, because the lawyers are played by Laura Dern and Ray Liotta.
But the good one is played by uh, uh,
Alan Alda.
Alan Alda, and I loved him.
He's great.
He's
I
so
love the
wonderful
fact
in this.
that
I wish he were nominated.
my favorite scene in this movie is when they're in court and the lawyers are really bickering and arguing back and forth. And the two of them, Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, are sitting at the end of their relative tables going, I don't want this.
Neither
Because
one of them
they had wanted this to be
without lawyers and just
without,
amicable and just split ways
and it turns out to be anything but.
right.
It
And
gets away from them.
right, it does. And by the end of it, they're like, okay, you and I are going to work together to get out of this,
Yeah.
and we're going to kind of leave them off and say, okay, this is what we wanted to do in the first place. I don't think it would have raised to the pitch without
Yeah.
those lawyers,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I think that without it raising to that pitch, he would have been able to steamroll her into staying with him much
Mhm.
easier,
Yeah.
because it was through this that she finally began to have a feeling of self-worth and a feeling that her career was not just an extension of his, or her job was not to make his career go better, but for her to have her own career in addition to his.
Yeah.
And that's not what he wanted. That's not what he was pushing for. He wanted her to be in his plays, and that's it.
Now, between the two of them, and you may disagree, I think he has the bigger part.
Much bigger.
Um, she's excellent in this
Mm-hmm.
because they're not jockeying for position. They're
No.
in their relative characters.
Yeah.
But he has the bigger part because I think he's the more emotional conduit.
He's the Adam Driver is an intense actor.
He is.
Um, I love it when he does funny parts because it lets him just not be a packed down bundle of ready to spring rage.
And please, if you haven't seen it, you've got to see him in Black Klansman. He was nominated for that last year, and he was so
So
good.
good. So good in that. There was a lot that was better about that movie than about a lot of movies that were out last. Anyway, um,
Well, let's move from one war
oh,
to another. uh,
this is a harrowing film.
it is. And I had to struggle a little bit to decide how I felt about it. Our next film is 1917, directed by Sam Mendes. And
And written by Sam Mendes, based on some experiences of his grandfather, great
well, I want to tell
grandfather.
you, this you want to try to describe this story because it's a very simple
Well,
plot.
it's World War One, Saving Private Ryan, but instead of just one guy, they're trying to save 1,500.
Yeah.
And it's two guys going to save a whole platoon instead of a squad going to save a guy.
Yeah.
And in that end, it is very compelling.
Mhm.
It's really nice to see King Tommen back on his feet
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
a little while. Spoiler alert.
I didn't expect that.
I didn't either. I didn't think that they were going to kill him, and
I thought the other guy was gonna bite it. because he's not the one that's given the orders. Um,
he was the one that was kind of in control. It was the I can't remember his name in the movie or his real name, so I'm just going to call him King Tom in the first of his name. Um, it was his brother. The reason that he was chosen to go on this mission was because his brother is in the platoon that they're trying to avoid attacking and going into a trap and being slaughtered. So you figure, oh, well, they're sending him. It's his brother. He's gonna make it. Nope.
Blake and Schofield.
Yes.
Blake
So-
is the little guy
Yeah.
that has the brother. What's going on is
King
they're
Tom in first of his name.
well. What's going on is they are they're British Tommies.
Yeah.
And they are the Germans have retreated, and they have led the Americans to think that they now, or the British, excuse me, to think that they now have an advantage to overtake them.
Right, but really they're marshaling their forces to ambush and wipe out the forces that they have there and make huge gains in their lines.
And just to show you, how futile this whole thing is, this whole thing takes place, or rather begins, on the day that America declares war on Germany.
Right.
So the tide of this war, despite how it would have turned out,
Is about to turn.
is about to turn.
Right.
Because by the end of this war, by the time this happens, Germany is starving,
Mm-hmm.
England is broke,
Mm-hmm.
Russia has gone home to build communism,
Mm-hmm.
to fight the Bolshevik War, and the Americans are the fresh backup.
Right.
We're coming into this 3 years too late.
Right.
We're coming into this 3 years late. Germany has no hope.
Right. They don't have, you know, fresh troops in reserve and all this kind of stuff.
Because everybody's been killed.
Right. Right. Or captured or deserted or,
Yeah.
anything. I was in this movie.
I was too.
I really like this. If when this wins Best Picture, I will not be upset. Outside of the fact that it should go to The Irishman because that's the best movie of the year,
Or Little Women.
or Little Women. If this wins, I will have fewer problems with this winning than if, say, Ford v Ferrari or Joker or even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm not pulling for that, even though that's also got 10 nominations up next to Joker.
I'm going to say I did notice, and I'm not saying I'm not getting into negatives, but I did notice the technology first because it's a filmmaker's movie.
Yes, very much so.
Because he tries to make the whole thing look like one shot.
Mm-hmm.
And you do notice that.
Yeah.
More than the characters. You notice we had to look up the characters' names.
Right.
And
it was an
the-
attempt to do kind of what Iñárritu did with Birdman.
right. And all through the movie, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, as I'm watching this movie, why is he telling this story?
Yeah.
What and I mean, it's not damaging it, but it is a thought in the back of my mind. I'm thinking, why is he telling the story? I don't, because it's very simple. They've got to get from this point to this point to stop this catastrophe.
I think the root of it for me, what I am always happy when there is a movie about World War One because most people forget that World War One happened.
Want to forget.
Because, or they don't even think about it. I saw a tweet from a critic that said he was behind two girls that were going to see 1917, and the one girl said, "Well, what's it about?" And she goes, "I don't know. It's set in a war, though." It's like, "Oh, is it now?" And the other girl goes, "No, it's set in a civil war." And he's like, "I'm not going to tell them."
Well, what I thought this movie was going to be, because anytime you have a movie about World War One, now you have to understand, kids, if you don't know, World War One was a brutal, ugly, nasty
It was
war.
appalling, and they were fighting over literal feet, not
Inches.
even
It was a war of
miles,
inches.
inches, and like I don't even know. Like if you got over into the other trenches, you still had to go back because all your shit was back there.
And your conditions were so bad, if you got an injury, it just festered.
Right. If you got a cut, that's what people with trench mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And trench foot.
it's basically like gingivitis, but it becomes a fungus and they can't treat it.
And trench foot.
Yeah.
You're standing in mud
Mm-hmm.
for days, weeks on end,
Mm-hmm.
and your feet just rot off.
Yeah. Yeah. So this war, it was the first war of the modern era, and
After the Industrial Revolution.
yeah, and it's
Nobody, not even the people, not even the officials, not the president, not anybody, expected this war to be this brutal. They thought it
and
was going
this
to be
long.
and
thought it was a
long. They
couple
thought it was going to
months.
be. They thought it was going to be, just the romantic notions of
Right.
war, just riding into battle with your sun flashing in the saber,
Right.
your saber flashing in the sun.
It was just gonna be a kind of a dust up.
Yeah, it'd be over by Christmas.
Yeah, one of those things that has to. It's like the gang wars in The Godfather. These things gotta happen every so often. It gets out the bad blood.
Clears out the bad blood.
Right.
Yeah.
And but this and the whole thing was started by a man named Gavrilo Princip. Yes, I remember that. Because I got it wrong on a history test in 11th grade, and I've never forgotten his name since. Assassinated
Franz
the
Ferdinand,
Austrian Archduke Ferdinand.
heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Right. And in the at the time still Czechoslovakia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so this sparked because it was an Austrian royal killed in Czechoslovakia by, I don't remember if Gavrilo Princip was Czech or if he was something else.
He's a Serbian nationalist.
He came from Serbia, went down to Czech to kill an Austrian.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately this is entwined. 3 countries are entangled in this immediately.
And Germany at the time Germany is a very young empire at the time, is being run by Kaiser Wilhelm,
Yes.
who is the grandson of Queen Victoria
Yes.
by marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And she does not recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
And he carries that burden with him. And he wants to build a new German empire. And these factions between England, Germany, Russia, all of these factions
France.
are looking for an excuse.
Right. And,
And this is it.
France and Germany were fighting over the Rhineland for hundreds of years anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just so happened to be part of France at this point.
Yeah.
Because of a war in the 1880s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Flipped it back from Germany. The French took it back. They were fighting over this for forever, and in a large way, World War I is just about the Rhineland.
Yeah. And they were so optimistic about this. They thought this was going to be the Spanish-American War. It'd be over, in 5 months.
Before it started, yeah.
And it would be over before it started. And nobody understood how brutal and awful and long this was going to be.
Yeah.
And then it was so brutal that, the World War destroyed a world.
Yeah. It was
And
4
by the
years
end,
long.
French casualties alone were like, by the end of the first year, French casualties alone were 1 million.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the interesting thing about this movie, and this is what I thought it was going to be, I thought this was going to be just trench warfare and scene after scene after scene of just bodies blowing apart
And
and
it
guts
wasn't.
hanging out. That's what I thought this was going to be.
And it
What
wasn't.
it turned out to be
Oh,
was a texture very much reminiscent of when I read War of the Worlds,
mm-hmm.
which that book is about a man walking through the aftermath
Right,
of the Martian invasion.
right.
These two guys don't ever come in contact with battle except at the beginning. And most of what they see, almost all of what they see, until they start to get close to where they're going,
Yeah,
is the aftermath of what's going on.
right. And the Blake doesn't even get killed in a battle.
It's a fight with a German pilot.
It's a fight by a downed German pilot that the pilots just didn't get to land in time to
No.
didn't blow him up. He landed and he gets stabbed
Mhm.
and bleeds out.
Dies in Schofield's arms.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a luxury that not a lot of them had.
My wife was watching this. She's like, I did not see
Yeah,
that
I
coming.
didn't see that coming at all. Especially, it was 45 minutes in.
Mm-hmm. And
Like,
you think Blake is going to be the one to?
He's not even in most of the movie.
Yeah, it's Schofield.
Yeah.
But
Played
as he gets,
very, very well. Like,
Yeah.
I like this actor. I can't. Let me
he's got a very expressive face. He doesn't say a lot.
Right, and I've seen him in a bunch of stuff.
But he now in that I was but honestly I sat there and I thought, why is Mendy so spending all of this time and energy and technology to tell this story
Mhm.
that's very, very simple? And then you get to the end and you realize he is dedicated to his great grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, okay, this is a family story.
Right, this is based on
The stories that his grandfather used to tell.
Right, this is like a fictionalization of stories that he was told about World War One by his, and this was the kid. This was the oldest brother in Captain Fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which you did
Very good
like,
actor.
and I liked Captain Fantastic.
I didn't.
I know.
But isn't it interesting? It's interesting how the movie reveals itself.
Yeah.
When they get to the abandoned German trenches
Yeah.
and they go down and down and down and they're bunk beds.
Yeah.
It's a barracks.
Yeah.
And you realize that the Germans are so much more prepared.
Right, because they've got like cement.
Yeah.
And like structures instead of tents and dugouts and
mud.
Yeah.
And the British are using bodies
Mm-hmm.
to
As
fortify
sandbags.
the trenches against snipers.
Yeah. They're using them
I-
as sandbags.
When I got to the end, it's interesting. When I got to that final credit and it said it was dedicated to Alfred Mendes, I thought, okay, now I completely understand what this is all about. I get this. And it just landed so beautifully.
And it's such a. I love it when a large scale grand movie is also intensely personal.
Yeah.
Because it's a hard line to walk. Because
Yeah, it is.
you can either go on the spectacle side or the personal side, and usually either the grandiosity or the personal side will suffer.
Yeah.
But it doesn't here.
Mhm.
It doesn't here at all.
It's a good movie. I'm not going to be ashamed. I'm not going to be sad if it went. And now I have every reason to think this is going to win Best
reasonably
Picture.
certain that it's going to win Best Picture. So yeah, I won't be upset
I won't either.
when this wins.
I'll be happy if it's The Irishman, and I'll be very happy if it's Little Women. But I know this is a more comfortable choice.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they'll because it's so personal, It'll be, oh well, yeah, this does all these filmmaking,
And it's a little safe.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I'm glad that he had a lot of restraint in making this,
Mm-hmm.
and not just soldiers with their guts hanging out. Because
Right.
I'm like, and whenever I see a movie about World War One, I'm like, oh come on, we know it was brutal and awful. You don't have to. Anyway, and I'm glad it was about World War One because we tend to forget that.
Yeah.
But now, happily, we move to. I'm going to say my favorite American filmmaker working right now. It's Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And if I said that The Irishman could only be made by a director of a certain age, boy, that's true here in droves. I mean,
Oh yeah. I mean, this is a pure.
this is pure filmmaking.
This is pure filmmaking. This is pure Tarantino.
Yeah.
And this is peak history revision from Quentin Tarantino. This is a fun movie
It is.
until the end. Then it just gets bonkers.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Super bonkers.
I was very. The first time I saw this, I was so kind of. It didn't seem to have a direction.
It very much did not seem to. I agree with that. Like, I'm sitting there watching it, I'm like, okay, well these characters are fun. I'm having a good time with Leo and Brad.
But I don't know exactly where the movie's going.
Right. I don't know. I mean, is this just going to be another down and out actors movie?
Yeah.
That seems pedestrian for
Mhm.
Tarantino. But boy howdy, does it turns a corner.
It turns a corner. Boy, does it turn a corner! It turned a corner that most people didn't expect,
I
and
didn't
a
see
lot
it
of people
coming.
didn't like.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because this takes place in the late '60s in Hollywood,
Hmm.
and it's very much soaked in that era between the breakdown of the Hollywood production, the Hollywood studios, and the auteur period
Right.
that's about to happen. And it's very much it takes place right around the time of the Manson murders,
Right.
and
And even
the Manson
includes a version of Charles Manson and the cult.
right. And when I heard that he was making a film about the Manson family, I'm like, oh God, I'm excited about
Yeah,
that.
me too.
Because I
Yeah.
thought this was
Yep.
going to be about the Manson family.
Me too. I thought it was going to be we're going to follow the Manson family and Tarantino following the Manson family. I can't even
But he
imagine
never
how much
directly
blood.
follows anything.
No.
He backs into these
Yeah.
things,
Yeah, he does.
just as he did with Hitler in
Yeah.
Glorious Bastards.
Yeah.
He in this story, it's about that turnover, and it's seen through the eyes of really three people.
Yeah.
One of them is Rick Dalton, played probably the best performance I've ever seen from DiCaprio.
This is such a well-tailored, nuanced role that I don't know if I would have expected this from him. I love him as an actor, and I've seen him turn in some great stuff, but this...
Both he and Brad Pitt
Oh, yeah.
have a very difficult, the same problem.
Yeah.
They're both such big stars that it's very hard for either of them to break away from that
Yeah.
that place,
Yeah.
because whenever you put either of them, you're seeing Leo DiCaprio,
Right.
you're seeing Brad Pitt, you're not seeing the character.
And, when Leo has overcome that
Mhm.
more frequently than Pitt.
Yeah. Well,
just look at The Revenant.
he's,
I mean, I didn't see Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant.
he's a better actor.
Well, he is. I mean, you don't have to apologize for that. He is a better actor. But
He's a better actor. Brad Pitt is a more natural actor.
yes. I love Brad Pitt's easy acting style. He's very
Yeah.
Robert Mitchum
Mhm.
in that his style is that he doesn't really have a style. He's
Right.
very laconic. You know, he's sleepy
But I
eye.
like the character of Rick Dalton as this guy who he either is or was the star of this Western TV show.
It got canceled.
And when you see the show, it's kind of like it would be kind of a hybrid of like Maverick and maybe Paladin.
Yeah.
And it's the very 60s Western TV series
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that was trying and failing to follow Gunsmoke.
Yeah. Which is just
Um,
a brilliant.
it's trying to be gun. It's trying to follow that pattern, but
Yeah.
still trying to. But the thing is, he has become everything the studio wanted him to be, which is he's marketable.
Mm-hmm.
And that marketability is pushing on the artist that he has always wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that he realizes that those days are slipping away.
Yeah.
And he is not going to be the pretty face, because we see some of the other things he's done, because he does kind of an Elvis Presley
Mm-hmm.
kind of picture, and you see
Right.
a lot of the films that he's in. It's a little bit like what Alden Ehrenreich was in Hail Caesar.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're on the set. He was a singing cowboy, and then immediately they take off the cowboy outfit, and then they put him in this
High society
right
comedy of divorce, and he didn't know what to do because he'd only ever been in westerns. He was a western guy. He was
right.
You
He's
know,
a singing cowboy.
Yeah, he really was who he was portraying,
Mhm.
and had a lot of trouble getting out of that.
And that's where Rick Dalton is.
Yeah.
Because I thought a lot of Regan Thompson,
Yeah.
the Michael Keaton character from Birdman.
Mm-hmm.
And an actor who has been part of the marketability, but has never really reached his potential.
Right, and that the only thing that anybody wants him for are things based off of the established marketability.
Right, the marketing
don't,
department.
Don't want to give him a shot as an actor.
Right, he's not taken seriously.
Right.
Because he feels that he has squandered his career on a show that is, it's cotton candy. It's
he
not.
He knows it's a subpar show, but
Yeah.
I mean, it was a steady paycheck. I mean,
Yeah, and it got him out there. It got him noticed, and it got him. It built whatever fortune he has.
Right. Right.
But he also, on the other side of this, is a guy who's is Cliff Booth, who is as no bullshit as anybody I've
Yeah.
ever seen in my life. He is absolutely not falling for any of this.
I had a whole lot of fun with Brad Pitt's character.
I did too. I
really
because he doesn't go in the directions that you think he is.
Right.
He plays a stuntman or former stuntman. And essentially, he is Rick Dalton's conscience. And he is living there. They're in L.A., Tarantino land.
Mm-hmm.
He's there in L.A., and they're not. And this is a place full of just phony crap.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees through all of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a girl that keeps turning up, and I mean it's interesting. She just keeps turning up everywhere he goes. It's this cute little girl, and
It's
you
like
think
it's like the woman in Booksmart.
yeah,
Just
oh
kept turning up.
the Billy Lord character just keeps
Billy
turning up at
Lord,
every party.
Yeah. She's
But
already
every
there, even though she shouldn't have been able to get there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean every time he stops at a stoplight, she's standing on the corner,
Right.
and I thought she was a prostitute. And he picks her up, and she tries, because you think they're going to have sex. And he picks her, and he starts questioning, her age.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, I really don't want to go to jail for having sex with a minor.
Right. He wisely has nothing physically to do,
Right.
which is kind of awesome for a movie set then.
Hmm.
It's probably the most progressive idea Quentin Tarantino has ever put forward in any of his
Hmm.
movies outside of maybe Kill Bill.
Yeah. Well, and um, I don't know if this was what Tarantino intended, but it's like Rick Dalton is living the high life. He's got the big house, he's got the career, he's got all of this. Cliff Booth doesn't. He lives down on the beach in a trailer, a ratty little trailer, and he's happy.
Yeah,
And it's just him and his dog, and he spends a lot of time with that dog.
that's
Um,
a good dog though. That
yeah.
is a good dog.
But it was very hard for me watching this the first time, and I'm still not 100% sure exactly what this character is supposed to be, because it's just a guy who never really got into the business, because I'm detecting that he sensed how phony and unrealistic all of this really is.
Right.
And but he's happy to live this life. He
Yeah.
could be the hanger on to Rick Dalton,
Yeah.
but he's not. He's just his buddy.
He's his friend. He's his assistant.
Hmm.
You know,
His conscience.
his driver.
Mhm.
He's yeah. It's so the movie is so well written and so well put together. It was weird for me. This kind of hit me in a way like I still need to see it a second time,
Hmm.
but it hit me the same way that Jackie Brown and Inglorious Bastards did.
Hmm.
On my first runs through those, I was like, yeah, these are good. And I
What?
don't think about it. But when I've since gone back to both of them,
Hmm.
I I can see where the brilliance is that I missed the first time, and I'm
Yeah.
sure that that will happen when I watch this a second time.
Well, when I was sitting there watching this, I was thinking, well, this is an interesting dichotomy, these two characters.
Mm-hmm.
But that dichotomy would be another filmmaker's
Movie.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
What puts the perfection
Mm-hmm.
into this, what absolutely cements this as a great movie, is a third character that they introduce, and that's Sharon Tate.
Yes.
I wish Margot Robbie had been nominated for this, because I hate Bombshell.
Bombshell was not.
Um,
Bombshell was not what they wanted it to be, and it wasn't what I wanted it to be.
if Rick is the potential squandered, or the
Mm-hmm.
feeling that he's never really gotten anything, and Cliff is the outsider who sees Hollywood for what it really is, she is the disillusionment,
Yeah.
because she still sees Hollywood as this place of wonderment.
Right, and she'll go in to watch one of her own movies, and
Yeah, she goes in to watch The Wrecking Crew.
She'll get in for free because she's
Mhm.
like, oh, I was in this movie and I was in Valley of the Dolls, and
Yeah.
she just kind of trades on that, and she goes in and watches her own movies, and has a lot of fun doing it, which is sweet,
But
sort of.
Margot Robbie has the most beautiful smile,
Mm-hmm.
and she uses that to perfection in this. And the
Mhm.
scenes where she's walking around and she's walking through Hollywood, and she goes to see her own movie, and she has a picture. She has to probe a fan
Yeah.
to get them to notice that
Mhm.
that's it. And also the idea that she's not cynical about any of this.
Right. No.
The cynicism has not set in. Is also set off by the fact that she is 7 months pregnant.
Right. And
And kids, if you don't know, the melancholy in all of this is the fact that at this time,
in real life,
in real life, Sharon Tate was brutally murdered along with several other people
And
by the Manson family.
And the baby was cut out and
Yeah.
hung by the umbilical. Like, it was all it was all just
It
awful.
was. This was what turned a lot of the optimism that people had in LA.
Yeah.
This is really when they say people started locking their doors.
Yeah, and when it ends,
I'm still not convinced by the ending.
that bonkers fight.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it doesn't even say, it doesn't mean, just because that happened doesn't mean that the next day wasn't.
Well, I mean, he killed most of the members of the Manson family. He killed one of them with a flamethrower.
Oh God, that was hilarious. In a way that I never expected somebody dying via flamethrower to be. I never thought that hilarious would be a word I would use, but...
You know what I kept thinking? The funniest scene in this movie, and it's a very Tarantino moment, it's when the technician gives Rick Dalton the flamethrower.
Yeah.
And he says, it's hot. Can you turn the heat down? Well, it's a flamethrower.
It's a flamethrower. Shoots fire. I don't...
Shoots fire. I don't think it's...
Yeah, that...
I love that.
Just the basic, just not understanding of the concept of what he's holding.
Which there couldn't be a more simplified idea than a flamethrower.
It throws flames. It literally does exactly what it says. I mean,
I love that.
So yeah, I mean, so she lives to the end of this movie, and I didn't know what he was going to do.
Because, by the way, we should also qualify this by mentioning that Rick lives next door.
Well, down the
to
hill.
Roman,
yeah,
to Roman Polanski
Yeah.
and Sharon Tate.
Right. And it feels like this is one of those situations where he introduces an element that wasn't there in reality.
Yeah,
But
because
if
the
it
movie
was-
ends on that day.
Right, but if they were there in real life, things would have turned out differently, just like in Glorious Bastards. The Bastards didn't exist, but if they did,
Mm-hmm. Things might have been
gone
different.
differently. Rick Dalton wasn't really there.
Mm-hmm.
But if he was, maybe they would have gone after his house, and they would not have killed Sharon Tate, and they wouldn't have gone on their big...
Now, why were they there? Was it was like, because there's that scene where he screams at them because they're sitting in his driveway in a rattletrap car, and is that why they came back?
Yes, I think that's why they came back, because he was threatening them, and they were coming back just to get back at him. But
And that's set off by the fact that Brad Pitt, the Cliff Booth, has gone out to the Spawn Ranch.
yeah, and knows the guy
That
owned it. Yeah,
George, played by Bruce
George.
Dern,
Yeah.
that was creepy
Oh yeah.
because he goes out there. Because the funny thing is, as he's sitting there talking to that redhead at the door,
Mm-hmm.
it took me a little while to figure out that was Squeaky Fromme.
Mm.
It took me a long time to figure out who that actually was, and then I started thinking, wait a minute, this is the Manson family.
Yeah.
And the girl he picked up was a member of the Manson family.
Yeah.
And I started kind of putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of like when we were talking about the Irishman, and I said, you know, the character kind of backs into Operation Mongoose.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, now I kind of get where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know exactly where it was going, but then you get down to that point where somehow they end up at Rick's house. I'm not sure exactly how. I'm not sure how they found his house, but they're sitting out in front of his house, and he comes out.
They thought it was Polanski's.
Yeah.
And I think that they were looking for the person that used to live in Polanski's house.
Yeah.
that might have been their target,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't live there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And because Rick Dalton got up in their faces, I think it was just, well, we're going to come back and do you.
We're playing house. Why is he tied up?
Roman
Polanski's
Polanski's house. Which is a joke that works on more levels than it should.
Right. It's a little Family Guy bit.
Because
I
it
love that.
could be one of his movies or his actual house. So yeah, this was a whole lot of fun. This it's Tarantino.
Up one side, down the other.
Yeah, if he finally wins a director Oscar for this, I don't think I'll be upset.
He couldn't have made this in 1993.
No.
He needed to be this age.
Yeah.
I think he's in his 60s. He needed to be in his 60s to make
early
this.
50s.
In his early 50s?
Yeah.
He needed to be this age to make this. It's not, he says, I love what he says. Somebody says, did you go to film school? He says, no, I went to films.
Yeah.
And you could tell that's his school. That's where he was.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the one. This is the last film that I saw for this.
I saw this a long time before you did.
Okay, let me tell you something. When I heard the word Parasite, I thought, okay, Outbreak. I thought Contagion. I thought one of these films where somebody goes to another country, they get a germ, they bring it home, it spreads to this person, then it spreads to 10 people, then it spreads to 100, then 1,000, then, suddenly you got a pandemic going on.
Right,
I thought that's what this was going to be.
Because this is the same guy that wrote and directed Snowpiercer. So that's not an Okja, which was a beautiful little film from a few years ago.
Yeah.
But so that wouldn't be outside the realm of thinking. Yeah. But what it ends up being, well, this one takes a hard left, too.
This one takes several hard lefts. This is about 6 different genres mixed into one.
So,
and I don't know.
How did you feel about this at the end?
Well, let me tell you this. Not knowing where it was going, when it was over, I sat there and I thought, I've spent some time with terrible people on both sides.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know if I can even explain this plot.
Okay, so this family...
It's a South Korean film. It's
South Korean film written and directed by Bong Joon-ho. So this kind of family of schemers, the people that don't really want to work, but want to have everything.
They're moochers.
Right. So the son ends up getting set up to be this young rich girl's English tutor. He's set up this by his friend who's going away. And he said, "Oh, you can make some money from him." So then he gets this idea that he's going to bring his sister in to be a teacher for the little boy in the house. But he doesn't say, "Hey, my sister can XYZ. Oh, I know." He
introduces her as a stranger.
This friend of a friend who does this thing, so that she gets in as an art therapy teacher. She Googled the word art therapy and then just bullshitted her way through the rest of it. Kind of beautiful.
Because believe me, if you want to be an artist or an art teacher, you can bullshit your way through it. I mean,
so and then they fix it to get the driver fired.
And they set it up to get the maid fired.
Their father to become the driver and the housekeeper to be their mother. never once disclosing that they're a full family.
And they set this up in a way that no human beings on the face of the earth could ever elaborate, unless
No.
unless the family that's the victims were complete and utter dumbbells.
Mm-hmm. So,
But it's so much fun to watch.
yeah, the trouble comes if that's not trouble enough.
This movie goes down a weird rabbit hole.
The trouble comes when the couple and the family go out camping for the son's birthday.
And there's a rainstorm.
And the four of them kind of set up shop in the house together, drinking the booze, eating the food, making a mess out of the place, but they know that the people aren't going to be back for another day or so.
Mm-hmm.
So they could just clean it up and everything's good. Well, then the doorbell rings, and it's the former housekeeper.
Saying, I left something.
I left something. What she left
was her husband.
Was her husband, who's living in a secret bunker to avoid predators.
Is avoiding loan sharks by living in this bunker under their house that they don't even know about.
They didn't even know it was there because the original owner, the housekeeper, had worked for the architect who built that into it. So she smuggled the husband in, and he's living down there. So then he gets discovered,
mm-hmm.
and there's a physical altercation.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because there is a massive rainstorm, the family comes home.
Uh-huh.
So they have to quickly get everything out of sight, and they're hiding under a table.
While they're on the couch having sex.
Well, more or less.
Foreplay.
Well, but the sun is out, and there's these huge windows. Full length ceiling.
He's
floor
outside
in
sleeping in a tent
because he wanted to go camping. It was his birthday, and so they're trying to be quiet. Mm-hmm. They know that the mother should be there because they said they knew the maid was going to be there.
They're hiding under the table.
Under the table.
And the mother and father are like, well, let's just sleep on the couch.
Yeah, and they're like, oh.
And they start having foreplay.
and then, I mean, things get worse because they tie up the housekeeper and her husband, the former housekeeper and her husband.
Oh, they don't just tie her up.
Well, and then
they bash her in the head.
Well, she gets kicked down the stairs and she dies.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this is happening under their noses, to the point where then they kill the guy too, but the guy has been acting as though he was a motion sensor.
Mm-hmm.
So he would kick lights on when they went into certain areas of the house, and he would Morse code out messages to his wife.
Okay, I'm going to say it again. This wealthy family, these have got to be the stupidest people on the face of the earth.
Utterly clueless.
I mean, absolutely.
I mean, and so by the end of it, this gets all kind of cleared up with the guy in the basement, and apparently, the way that I read it, the husband in the basement is described as the parasite.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that all of them were parasitic, leeching off of this family. And so by the end, was it the daughter gets killed?
Yeah. At a birthday party.
That birthday
party, oh my God.
So she gets shot?
No, she gets stabbed.
She gets stabbed, and then she makes the
She
mistake of
stabs the
dying.
father. She stabs the husband with a
He does. The
with a
father
barbecue
does.
skewer
The father kills the...
with the shrimp on it.
Right. The father kills the other father. Because she said dad, and like, oh, are you related? And he just comes up and kills the guy in his yard.
Hmm. Who
And
the kid
then...
has seen, who the little boy has seen, and thinks is a ghost.
Yeah.
He's come up, I think once, and the little boy is traumatized because he thinks the guy living downstairs in the bunker is a ghost.
Yeah. So the guy in the bunker kills the daughter who's posing as the art therapy teacher.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he gets killed.
Yeah.
And then the father, who is the driver, kills the patriarch of the rich family, the
Mhm.
rich dad. They squirrel him down away into this little bunker apartment.
Yeah.
And the boy is like, I will earn money and I will buy this house, and then you'll be free. You won't have to hide anymore, but we'll
Right.
work out the same kind
That's
of
where the
situation.
movie leaves you.
And that's it. That's the end. We don't know if what we see is him actually doing it or him fantasizing and describing how he's going to do it.
Well, based on the way this movie's been going, I don't doubt it.
Yeah. This thing is insanity on ice, and it is brilliant every step of the way.
Let me tell you something. As I watch this, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I have to turn off the logic centers of my brain because this is not going to happen at all. But what he
This goes as
does,
crazy as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
worse.
Yeah.
Because Tarantino at least saved it for the third act. This, I think, starts about the second act.
Yeah.
What this is it questions who's the real parasite.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a movie about class warfare.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because it's very, very cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the very beginning of the movie, I mean, just as the movie's about to start, there's a bell.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason the director did that was because he wanted the audience to understand. He wanted to make sure that the audience got the ambient noise.
Mm-hmm.
All through the movie, there is all kinds of ambient noise.
Yeah.
Dogs barking,
Mm-hmm.
bugs, machinery,
Rain.
water,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things that tell you what you're about to get into.
Right.
And symbolize where the characters are at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in doing so, he gives you this weird story in this immersive experience.
Right. Yeah.
I was very lucky because I watched it with headphones on. I watched this last night, and I watched it with my headphones on because I watched it on my computer. Because I have the screener that was sent to us.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
how I
I'm
saw it,
getting all of the ambient noise
Mm-hmm.
as I'm watching it. Because I started watching it in my living room. I don't think it would have worked half as well.
I watched it in my office, so
Mm-hmm.
I was closer to the television.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is an intimate movie.
Mm-hmm.
It has very quiet stretches.
The story is complete crap because there's, like I say, the logic. You turn off the logic center of your brain.
Well, so I loved this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I would be elated if this were the first non-English language movie to win Best Picture.
I'm not there with you.
It won't be. I definitely think Bong Joon-ho
He's a hell of a director.
him being nominated for this was appropriate. I would love to see him win.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see him pick up the screenplay Oscar. Anything just in addition to Best International Film.
Which is
because
the new title for Best Foreign
you're
Language
right.
Film.
But the thing is, best international film, best film not in the English language, foreign language film, whatever you want to call it. I have noticed that if there is a heavily favored, very popular one, it
Mhm.
does not win.
Yeah.
Um,
It has to go for it goes for the critical favorite generally because
right.
or it goes for the one that has the most clout going in.
Or like Pan's Labyrinth
Mhm.
not winning.
Well, that was because it was Del Toro.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you where I am with this. The only thing about this movie is that there is another film that I think should have been here,
Mm.
and that's The Farewell.
Mm-hmm.
That film, which you have not seen yet,
No.
is one of the most glorious celebrations of what it means to be a family
Mm.
and what a family goes through when one of your patriarchs is about to leave you.
Mm-hmm.
I was heartbroken when that wasn't nominated for anything.
Anything. I still don't understand that.
Awkwafina became the first Asian actress
Mm-hmm.
ever to win the Best Lead Actress Golden Globe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tragic.
Yeah.
Why in the world they didn't nominate that film? And I'm thinking about that. And I hate to be this way, but I'm thinking about that all through Parasite. As much as I'm enjoying Parasite, um, Parasite has a lot to say
Yes.
about class divisions, about class, about who people are, where they come from.
It's a distinctively Bong Joon-ho film.
It very much is. But The Farewell, about this young woman who comes home to China to see her grandmother, who is stage 4 lung cancer, and realizes that based on custom, they are not going to tell her. The family is not going to tell the grandmother that she's dying.
Mm.
Is a hard, is a very, very emotional journey.
Yeah.
9 months ago, I lost my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So that movie grabs me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason that movie is so much in my heart right now.
I can definitely understand that.
But that is not to say that Parasite is less worthy. But of the two, I have to sit here and I have to
Well,
wonder, where was their mind?
I think in it,
It
to
just seems
me,
like the kind of movie that the Oscar voters would eat up.
well, yeah, and I don't think it should be a question between one Asian language film versus another Asian
Yeah,
language film.
absolutely.
I I would be. There are two spots still open for.
Yeah,
I mean, they
which is
could have
really what's driving me nuts
they
because
could
I
have
don't know exactly how that works.
easily put the two that we're bitching about not being nominated in
Hmm.
and keep the other ones.
Yeah.
But if they only wanted 8, I would have been fine with them not nominating, obviously, Ford v Ferrari, but not having Jojo Rabbit in there too. I would get that was a head scratcher for Best Picture for me. I'm glad it is nominated for Best Picture because it I loved it way more than you did, but
Hmm.
it's one of those that I'm like,
I liked what he was attempting to do.
I'm glad it got nominated, but I would have expected it to go the same route as like Hunt for the Wilder People.
Yeah.
Just be kind of known and forgot and ignored, despite how. Did you see Hunt for the Wilder People?
It did.
Oh God, that's a wonderful movie.
It is a good movie.
Um. So, yeah, I definitely there are. we definitely could have had nominations for Knives Out, The Farewell,
Mm.
even just pulling out some of the standard ones that like Marriage Story, Ford v Ferrari.
Marriage Story I get because Marriage Story feels more like an Oscar
I I get
contender.
why it's nominated, but
Yeah,
I
I
also
understand. I just
the movie is the script and the performances
mm,
much less than an overarching solid piece of work. People watch that movie and they talk about Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson and Laura Dern. They
yeah.
don't talk about Noah Baumbach
Mm.
because
But
the
it just
performances
frustrates
drive
me
it.
in the fact that I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, The Farewell has an ending that is as, and I won't give it away, but has an ending that is as powerful and as affirming as anything I've ever seen.
Hmm.
And it's absolutely earned.
Hmm. Yeah. Well.
And I sit there and I'm just, I liked Parasite a lot. And because the movie has levels.
Oh, a lot.
It's a lot of levels and it has a lot to say. Um, Farewell is by comparison more conventional, but
And you know, emotional movies will always pull us toward them more than intellectual movies. Parasite is a very
right,
intellectual
yeah.
head movie, whereas the way you're
I don't know.
describing The
It
Farewell,
was emotional in some points because I was exhausted when that
yeah,
movie was over.
yeah. But I mean, a lot of it, it's the characters are driving that story,
Yeah,
and it's more of a cerebral concept,
yeah.
and whereas The Farewell, that's more emotion based,
Mm.
which is usually what wins over Academy voters.
And again, like Marriage Story, it's very personal because the director went through this,
Yeah.
and she does a beautiful job of mixing um, heavy drama,
Hmm.
but a lot of comedy.
Aquafina's a brilliant comedian.
She's not the comedy of the story.
I know, but she is still a
Because in
great
this
comedian.
movie, the grandmother
Oh
is
yeah.
absolutely this little ball of fire. She is wonderful. I don't know who this actress
She
is.
was nominated for a whole bunch of awards for this part.
Yeah,
Well, except the Oscar.
except the Oscar. Well, we
I
can't
love
have
it.
that.
Kathy Bates is nominated for the Oscar and nothing else. And Jennifer Lopez and this woman are nominated for everything else and
Is it
not the
because she's
Oscar.
an Oscar legacy? Is it because they love Kathy Bates and they've nominated her several times?
She won once.
But I mean, they've nominated, but they nominated her several times
Oh
since.
yeah, yeah.
She's a
I
mainstay.
That's what I think it was. It was like, well, you know,
It's
Clint
Kathy
Eastwood put a
Bates.
movie out and it's Kathy Bates, so
It's the Meryl Streep syndrome.
yeah.
We don't
And
care what she's playing.
I don't have any idea how good or bad she is in the movie. I always love Kathy Bates,
Mhm.
but I mean,
Look,
that's just a really good Oscar PR campaign.
she has lost a lot of good.
Yeah.
She only won the Oscar once, but she has lost for a lot of good performances.
Mm-hmm.
None better than Primary Colors. That was a
Yeah.
powerful performance
Yeah, she was good.
because it was comedic, but it had this heavy dramatic pull to it.
She
It was
can
such a good
she
performance.
can play so many notes.
Yeah,
She's such a brilliant actress that I hate to say I wish she hadn't been nominated for an Oscar for something, but I wish she had not been nominated for an Oscar for this.
right.
I kind of wish Margot Robbie had not been nominated for, or no. Who's nominated for Bombshell? Is it Margot Robbie?
Margot Robbie and Charlize Theron.
Yeah. I wish Margot Robbie had not been nominated
Because what
there
is she
are
really
other
playing in the?
spots.
What's she really playing in that movie?
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of there. I get nominating Charlize Theron. She gives a great performance.
It's a movie that is buried in technology.
Oh yeah. I mean,
It's so overproduced. They're
Right.
trying so hard to use special effects to get everything to look right that it takes you. You're just gone from the movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the director of Austin Powers. What did you want?
It's Jay Roach.
I mean,
But they're trying so hard to make her look like Megyn Kelly that I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm not. I'm looking at the technology. I'm not looking at her performance.
mhm.
There's a guy who shows up in the movie who is playing Bill O'Reilly, and they've done so much computer work. He looks like a cutscene from a video game.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just it's a badly made movie.
Yeah.
And John Lithgow plays Roger Ailes, looks like Jabba the Hutt. My God, I mean,
Yeah, but so did Roger Ailes.
well, yes.
I mean, Roger Ailes was a very
trying not to say that, but...
had a very unpleasant appearance and a very unpleasant personality. He was just a terrible person.
But when you put that in makeup,
Ugh.
it looks like something out of the Henson shop. It just it's terrible.
He kind of looked like if Alfred Hitchcock had actually lived out what he did to his actresses.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I liked Parasite a whole lot more.
I did. I liked it a lot. I liked it a lot.
It was so good. That's...
I mean, I want to say, I'm not saying that it's a bad movie.
I know.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie at all. In fact, I found it very compelling.
Mm-hmm.
I found it wonderful. I thought it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think the farewell is getting in my brain because of the emotional level that I'm taking to it because of personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about that movie later this year.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to that. But
Me too.
until then, this has been a long show. I apologize.
Yeah, yes.
We had a lot to talk about. Because we didn't have to talk about Green Book.
Right, and our last episode was really long because it was The Irishman.
Yes.
So,
was that episode as long as the movie?
an hour shy.
An hour shy? Wow.
Just
All
an
right,
hour.
well, the Oscars are February 9th. Boy, they were killing me with that date.
Yeah.
Usually it's at the end of the month. They moved it up. And this has just been killing me because I've been trying to get to the... I've been trying to get to all the movies. I had to go and I saw 3 movies this weekend just to fill it out. I saw Little Women, Ford v Ferrari, and Parasite.
See, I had seen...
I finished Parasite this morning!
Yeah, I saw most of these. Most of the Best Picture nominees were also nominated by the OFCS.
Yeah.
For Best Picture, and I had seen all of the Best Picture nominees for that.
Well, and 2 of them are on Netflix.
Right, and I only had to catch up with Ford v Ferrari and Little Women because Little Women was not out.
Yeah.
For me to be
Little
able
Women
to
came
see
out
it.
Christmas Day.
Right, and it wasn't nominated for Best Picture for the OFCS.
And we were spending a lot of time going to see Star Wars over and over again.
Well, yeah.
Yes, because you do.
And so I only had just those 2 really to catch up with, Little Women and Ford v Ferrari, because I'd seen the other ones. I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be disappointed. That's why I'm really happy that they moved it up so that I don't have to wait that long to be disappointed.
To be disappointed. You don't have to wait for Irishman to be nominated to win nothing.
Yeah. So I have much less time to be disappointed, and that's the weekend of my birthday.
Yeah.
That's the weekend after my birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday. None of the things you want to win will win.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's about all I have for.
That's all I got.
For that. So we thank you very much for joining us. You can find all of our episodes at thepodbaydoorspodcast.wordpress.com. We are on iTunes and YouTube. The Pod Bay Doors Podcast with Doug and Jerry. Make sure you do the whole thing. You can find us on Twitter and Patreon with the same handle at pod_bay. Again, we thank you very much for joining us, and the Pod Bay Doors are now closed.
The mission has been complete.